How do you do? So nice to have this chance to see you.
Welcome to this latest edition of the Cranky Curmudgeon's Corner. My name is Paul Thomas, and this evening we are going to be talking about the understanding we need to achieve regarding racial violence. With us tonight, Whitney Brooks, Eric Moses, Daniel Thomas. There have been a number of recent trials involving violence and race. The most famous being Derek Chauvin's 9+ minute murder of George Floyd, which was recorded on a cell phone camera for all the world to see.
Mama, I love you. Reese, I love you. You got hobble? My kids, I love you.
On November 22nd, 2014, a 12-year-old African American child was playing in a Cleveland park with a toy gun. When a white 26-year-old police officer arrived in a squad car, he immediately opened his door and shot Tamir Rice in less than 2 seconds. Ohio is an open carry state, which means that its citizens are permitted to openly carry firearms. Tamir lay on the ground with no attempt by the officers to treat his wounds for 4 minutes until an FBI agent arrived on the scene. He died the next day. This snapshot doesn't come close to telling the whole story, which includes the dispatcher, the officer's employment history, cuffing Tamir's sister while her brother lay bleeding on the ground, the grand jury's decision not to indict, the civil settlement, and a whole lot of other issues related to this killing. How can we reconcile an open carry law with a self-defense law, which allows cops and other white vigilante armed gunmen to kill kids like Trayvon Martin and Tamir Rice with no accountability? Or is it irreconcilable? Dan, we have two laws on the books. One law saying it's open carry, and the other one is the police are allowed to shoot with impunity. I shouldn't say that's a law, but that's what's happening.
Okay, well, in the Tamir Rice example, he was not threatening the officers. Like we have all seen the video of this child being murdered by a police officer, and the police car rolls up on him. He has no idea what's happening. He's got a toy in his hand, and the officer opens his door and shoots him before he has any time to react, to surrender, to put up his hands, to do anything. So if Tamir Rice had been a little white boy, I don't think they would have shot him. I don't think that with our culture of racism and implicit bias in this country, that it is a good idea for it to be an open carry. I don't think open carry is a good idea, period. I believe that bringing a weapon into any situation just increases tension. It puts everything on edge. It is a very cliched saying, but when you have a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail. So if you have a gun, then suddenly you find reasons to use it where maybe you would have found some other means to get past it before. I'm not sure that these are recognizable. I don't think self-defense could have possibly played into the whatever decision-making process that police officer had when he executed that child, because that child was not threatening him. He wasn't pointing the gun. He wasn't waving the gun around. He just had it, and they rolled right up and shot him. And I cannot believe that the grand jury decided not to indict him when it was plainly visible what happened.
Merrick, the grand jury didn't indict him. Dan sees it as something that was clearly avoidable. I don't know if I don't want to put words in your mouth, Dan, but he wasn't doing anything that was threatening, but yet he ended up dead. How do you see it?
Not surprised. Ohio is a notorious racist state. I have cousins in Ohio, and I have a number of friends from Ohio. And most of my friends from Ohio are queer, and they, as soon as they could, they beelined it out. They were like, Ohio's off the chain. Ohio does have open carry. However, apparently that law does not include black people because Crawford, if my memory serves me correctly, was in Ohio walking around with a pop gun that he purchased from Walmart in Ohio and ended up getting shot by a police officer or sheriff's deputy in the Walmart, uh, and the gun was not real. So, and that person also got off. So, what that tells me is that we have a white supremacist state of mind in that state and in most of the country. So, although I would like the laws to be applied equally and with equity, the United States of America, America with three Ks, has shown that it is not really about that, and it is about upholding white minority privilege. And that's what we see here. And unfortunately, we have a good portion of politicians, be they Democrats and Republicans, who are willing to be Dixiecrats for the sake of maintaining, well, I won't say maintaining, I will say for the sake of building white minority rule in a country that we know is majority persons of color by 2040. But I would even assert that that is probably the situation right now because people are undercounted. So it is genetic annihilation fears that are driving this white supremacist impulse that has at least existed for the past 500 years. And if we don't get it together, the earth will go down and the earth will kick us off because white supremacy is not just a danger to people, but is a danger to the whole planet because its philosophy is subject and subdue the planet and all those who live in harmony with the planet.
Whitney, can we have both things? Open carry and not having black people who do carry, even their toys, get shot down.
No, not unless somebody waves a magical wand and eradicates implicit bias. It's not, no, those two things can't coexist together.
It's just the bias is what's preventing it from being fairly applied.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to vigilantes, civilians or whatever, but police officers don't get nearly the amount of training that they do in implicit bias and de-escalation techniques. Would be a good place to start if that was the end goal, to be able to have open carry without racial violence, but I don't see it's not going to happen, at least not anytime soon.
Okay. In assembling this panel, I mentioned that I wanted to show some videos of police encounters of individuals for analysis and comment, which you will see later on when we get to those particular. I then got some feedback from Whitney and Dan, who informed me that they weren't going to watch the videos I selected. Could you please explain to our viewers why you don't want to see these videos? Whitney, you didn't want to see the videos. There was an emotional reason behind that. Please explain.
Because it's traumatizing. I mean, I don't need to see these videos in order to have a conversation about them. The fact that I already have to move through the world as a Black woman, as a queer Black woman, means that I have to, you know, experience things that aren't pleasant, and I just refuse to traumatize myself even further. I don't think that it was. I don't think any good can come from watching that video. It's not good for my mental health, and I just didn't think it was necessary.
Dan, mental health, a good reason not to be further traumatized. Was that your reason, or did you have another reason?
No, it's a very good reason. When as a white person, I have a lot of privilege, and my whiteness does protect me from a lot of trauma, but I am also LGBT, and that means that I do get to see what that trauma looks like because I am also part of a marginalized group. The difference is I can pass. I can completely turn that off so that other people on the street won't say or notice or do anything. So I can choose to hide what makes me different and puts me in a more traumatic position, whereas people with an ethnic difference can't. People of color can't just hide it. And none of us should have to, but I do have that option available to me. And it is horrific to watch the system brutalize anyone, knowing that that can just be turned on me really quickly. And I don't want to go through it. I don't want to look at pictures of Matthew Shepard. I don't want to look at crime scene photos of Kitty Genovese. I don't want to experience it because this was violence against people like me. And I utterly empathize with other people who don't want to see violence committed against people like them, especially if it's violence from within the system. If it's an authority, a government authority, like a police officer abusing somebody who looks like me, whose experiences are like mine, that's triggering and traumatizing. And I don't think anybody should really have to go through it. And I respect the choice of people who don't want to endure that again. Now, I did see most of these videos when the incidents happened originally. I did force myself to watch it, and it hurt. And I don't feel like watching me watching them again is going to give me any further insight into what happened than what happened when I saw them the first time.
Okay, drama for you too then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Merrick, you agreed to take a look at those videos, or just to say why you needed to see these videos.
Well, first of all, I'm a glutton for punishment who works for an agency that deals with crime. So that's pretty much what I do for a living. So I didn't mind seeing it. I won't say that I wasn't affected by those videos. I definitely was when they came out. But I'm also in a space of I look at these videos to remember what my ancestors went through, and I have vowed that I will never forget. So for me personally, it is a helpful reminder of the work that remains to be completed for the liberation of all people, especially people of color.
I figure out where you were going.
You don't have water, do you?
I can find you some. Do you have any water in your car?
Put your hands out the window!
Do you have any water in your car? Do you have any water?
So why are your weapons drawn? What's going on?
Open the door slowly and step out!
Do you have any water in your car?
What's going on?
Get out of the car now!
Do you have any water?
I was about to ask if we can clean them up.
No, but you can give him some water to drink if he wants.
Lay flat!
This is fucked up! I can't fucking believe I'm being treated like this, and I'm fucking
Get on the ground! Get on the ground!
I can't believe none of us have water.
You mind putting out your cigarette, please?
Do you have any water in yours?
Water?
Yeah, like drinking water.
I may have a bottle. I
Can I have it if you do?
Get out of the car! And then I will light you up. Get out!
Wow.
Now!
Wow.
Get out of the car!
Really, for a failure to signal. You doing all of this for
Get
a failure?
over there!
James, do you have any water in your car? Like drinking water?
Is this typical, or is this say something else to you?
It sounds about white.
Okay.
They knew him, they knew who he was, and the overall police attitude was, we're gonna let him get away with murder. And that is very much not okay with me. I mean, these guys did eventually wind up convicted, and they have their life sentences coming, and that is not enough. But the behavior of the police in this instance, like, oh, we're not gonna arrest him, oh, we're not gonna do anything, we're just gonna have a little chat and everything is gonna be fine.
It was take it easy. You okay? Good. Easy.
Yeah.
Take it easy.
Yeah, that is not okay, and that is the same kind of behavior that was the attitude that happened towards Kyle Rittenhouse. And that I don't believe that a person of color would have been given the same kind of dispensation, the same benefit of the doubt, the same generosity. I don't think that, based on everything I know about American law enforcement, that somebody who was not white would have possibly been treated with that attitude. But I do think that a white person would do it. And if you were really in a self-defense situation and you had to fight back and you won, whatever that victory looked like, when you were legitimately defending yourself, it would be a stressful situation. But I don't think you get the self-defense benefit when you chased someone down and attacked them. And this was Kyle Rittenhouse's defense. This was Aubrey's killer's defenses. This was George Zimmerman's defense. Like, these people were the aggressors. And when things turned on them, suddenly it was okay for them to use deadly force. And that's not, the law may say in certain situations that's okay, but I don't think you can pick a fight with somebody and then when you lose that fight, shoot them. If he had been chased down and attacked without provocation, I can see a police officer, it would be okay for a police officer to try and calm him down. But that's not what happened here. And he was given a benefit of the doubt that I don't think someone who looked like his victim would have gotten if the situation had been reversed. I think the police probably would have shot Aubrey themselves if he had acted in his own defense and won.
Merrick, kid gloves for Mr. McMichael here. Was that something that you see as racially motivated, or was it just because she knew him, or what's your take?
I think it was both. I think because McMichael Senior, whatever his name is, works for the local department. He did have favoritism, but I also thought it was the presumption of innocence of whiteness that led him and his son and their associate to escape scrutiny for so long. That being said, I think that, we know that Euro-American folks get preferential treatment in all spheres of the society because of the racial caste system. So it didn't surprise me. I will say, though, that I was surprised at the guilty verdict. Because my mother and my father were super old school, and they lived through the whole Emmett Till situation. and their parents lived through the period of lynchings. So I am under no illusion that justice was guaranteed in this case. I was surprised because it is so far below the Mason-Dixon line that they were able to get justice. But I also think that the jurors, in the back of their minds, they knew if they let these people go, America was going to burn down, and that was going to be a real thing. Like, people are fed up and people are tired. And one thing that I do know is that we see a pattern here of Euro Americans not minding their business. This person was just jogging down the street, minding their business. And for a lot of what we see here, a lot of times people of color, particularly Black people, are attacked when they do what routine things, minding their own business. So I think that one of the things that should come out of this is this acknowledgement that people need to what? Mind their own business.
Whitney, I'm paraphrasing Merrick here. He said the presumption of innocence of whiteness. Is that what happened here with this interview that this female officer gave Mr. McMichael?
I've not witnessed a lot of arrests that happen right after a murder to compare, but I mean, I would assume so, even if it was on a subconscious level.
Windsor, Virginia patrolman Joe Gutierrez encountering motorist and Army Lieutenant Karen Nazario. Whitney, this guy got pepper sprayed because he wouldn't get out of his car. He said he was afraid for his life, and it was just a routine traffic stop. I don't even know if there was like a violation, that like speeding or anything. But is this typical?
I've never been pepper sprayed when I pulled over, but I've also never to get out of the car. I've never been asked to get out of the car. No, I mean, nothing about this is typical.
Have you been pulled over often?
No, actually.
So you're a pretty good driver then. You follow the rules on the highway.
For the most part, yes, but I don't think it really has anything to do with being a good driver. I mean, a lot of times Black people get pulled over just for driving while Black. I mean, police will come up with a reason, whether it's legit or not, to pull somebody over, just to give them a hard time. But I've been fortunate enough that that has not happened to me.
Okay. Merrick, typical behavior, typical police pulling over and a motorist for whatever violation. We don't even know what that violation was.
I think we have to take a number of factors into account. One, location. Was this on the West Coast, East Coast, Midwest, wherever? Was it in the South? Was it in the North? We have to take consideration of that. Two, did these officers know the person they stopped? I don't know. In small towns and mid-sized towns, oftentimes the officers do know the particular resident. So I don't know what their history and background is. Three, one of the things we have to take into account in talking about these incidents is, one, were the officers or other officers involved in white supremacist groups? I say that because there are people in military and in police work and in law enforcement who are showing up USDA, grade A Klansmen, Nazis, and neo-Confederates. All of these people are in the batch of deplorables, and all of these people are in, have been birthed from the butt crack of hell. That being said, we don't know their background. They need to be investigated. If they are known to hang around white supremacists, aka maggots and militia, they need to be investigated. So what I would say is having, having worked with a number of officers, it depends on the mindset of the officer as well. I mean, since
And
my
you've worked with some good officers too, right?
oh yes, I mean, I've worked with officers that have helped me find a temporary housing for LGBT people who were put out on the street. So I don't really uh, brush all cops with the same brush. However, I do, in working with police, I do know there are several psychological factors in their history and their upbringing that may, in fact, influence their view of the people they stop doing their police work.
Okay. Dan, I think Merrick alluded to some experience-based concerns or factors that may have led Officer Gutierrez to treat Lieutenant Nazario this way. What's your take?
I have never been pulled over in such a way that I was not able to talk my way out of it. I have never had pepper spray pulled on me. I don't think the motorist in this case was behaving in any way that was different than I would have behaved. And I mean, I've also never been caught speeding. It doesn't mean I don't do it, but I believe that the reaction was definitely excessive, and I do think that there was an implicit bias at work there where that officer was looking for a confrontation, or he was expecting a confrontation, and he most definitely got one. I interpret, based on what I had seen when I saw that video a while back, that he wanted a fight and he got one, and things escalated relatively quickly. Like, if you pick a fight with somebody, they are going to respond.
Well, I didn't see any aggressive moves at all by Lieutenant Nazario. He just said, "I don't want to. I'm afraid for my life here. I don't want to put my hands down." And I think the reason why he didn't want to put his hands down, because the cops could have said gun. Given your answers of how typical police behavior is with these two different types of incidents, can you derive any conclusions on how police treat different people differently? Or are these just isolated incidents from which no conclusions can be drawn? Is there any generalizations we can come to, Dan, based on these two very different treatments? One of a guy who killed somebody, another of a guy who was just driving along the road.
Okay, my assessment is that we like to avoid any kind of real growth or change in this country. And it's probably not just this country, but I can only speak to the American experience. And in order to avoid any real growth or change on this particular topic, we call these isolated incidents, and we use the metaphor of a few bad apples, which is, I think that both of these are inaccurate. The preponderance of incidents that have come forward since everybody started carrying a video camera in their pocket speaks to a huge cultural problem. I respect the idea of law enforcement, but I really feel that it's most definitely attracting exactly the wrong kind of people in a lot of instances, and that's very, very problematic. I do think that there is behavior involved where these people are giving certain folks benefit of the doubt, picking fights with other groups of people. We're over policing certain communities while under policing other communities. Like, if you want to go find a whole lot of illegal designer drugs, go to any college campus and find the rich white fraternity. But if you want to find a whole bunch of drug convictions, go to an African American community looking for pot. and you will find that. And that is a huge disparity. And we don't want to acknowledge that kind of truth, so we don't. And when bad things happen to Black people, we say that it is a few bad apples doing it. But there's most definitely implicit bias. A few months ago, I was listening to a podcast about Jeffrey Dahmer, and as serial killers go, he's the gay one, so he was pretty well known. One of Jeffrey Dahmer's victims got away mid-murder with like a big head wound and ran running down the street and was directed.
This was the Asian guy, right? The Asian
Yes.
guy.
Yeah, he was directed to police officers. Jeffrey Dahmer came and collected him from the police officers and said, "We're gay and this is just what we do." Like, the guy had an open bleeding head wound, and the police officers back in the late 70s, early 80s accepted that that was part of their implicit bias. They did not know, they did not want to know. There was clearly an injured person asking for help, and they just let him go.
Well, they let Jeffrey Dahmer take him away, right? And
yes,
he killed him. He killed him later that evening.
Correct. So they definitely were acting on some implicit bias there, and I don't think that humans have really changed that much in the last 40 some years. We all still have the implicit biases that we're acting on, and they went with it then, and I think we're still going with it now, and we don't train them enough. Like, I've been to a ton of diversity trainings over the years at various jobs. They're looked upon as a chore. You don't really learn anything. You are going through the motions of being taught something that the trainer doesn't even really care that much about in most cases. They are doing it because they feel they have to, because they've been instructed to. And the end result is nobody actually takes anything away from those. And I think that what police get are probably a lot worse than what I was getting in private industry. And I don't think I've had one in probably 10 years working for the government. So I don't think that the police are being trained how to deal with the various communities that they are policing. And I don't think we get enough police coming out of those communities to have a real rapport with them. And I don't think enough of an effort is being made to build one which leaves implicit biases in place, because nothing ever challenges those.
Whitney, Dan said preponderance of incidents caught on cell phones. And that led him to a conclusion. What's your conclusion?
I definitely agree that they're not isolated incidents. I mean, I've mentioned before on a different show that it's not that racial violence is escalating, it's that it's being caught on camera now. The technology has evolved to the point where, like Dan said, everybody has a video camera. And so it's a lot easier to catch on film. I mean, is it common? It's more common than people think it is. Is it the standard? It's not supposed to be, or it probably isn't for white people, but it is for people of color. Depends on who you're asking, who the victims are, who the perpetrators are.
So maybe typical for certain victims and typical for certain perps, and not so typical for other. Well, we won't call them perps because Merrick alluded earlier to cops that there's a lot of good cops out there, and that good cops wouldn't act this way. Is that a correct assessment, Merrick, of what you described earlier?
Yes. So, in my experience, you can't lump all police in one basket. There are officers out there that really do care. And oftentimes they are swimming upstream against a tide of white supremacy, sexism, and homophobia and transphobia. That being said, I think that we need to get out of the idea of typical interactions and start looking at behavior, particularly from officers on a spectrum. One of the things that I think needs to be done is regular psychological examinations. And I don't mean like, oh, we just want to go through the mushy stuff. I mean, everything is to assess the level of bias in this person and their psychological readiness. I'm at a point where I'm very well. I understand that there are departments that just hire people who have military experience, and here you go with a gun in the past, right? Because they think they need somebody. I think that truthfully and completely, police work and and the criminal justice system period needs a total and complete overhaul. It is doing right exactly what it was designed to do, which is to exonerate the slave master's children while continuing to perpetuate white supremacy and racism through laws and through de facto actions. So until the system gets overhauled, we're going to continue to see these things. And so when I say white supremacy,
Okay, how would you suggest this overhaul be manifested? Like you're talking about the masters, exonerate the masters, the children of the masters, while persecuting the descendants of the slaves. But how would you impose this reform that you're suggesting?
I would like to see, besides the psych testing, I would like to see an examination of people's readiness for police work. So that looks like one. Do you know how to socially interact with others? I have heard in various spaces and places that there are police departments that are literally training their new officers who are often young officers to actually get out of their cars and talk to people. They don't know how to interact with people because they are children of the internet. So this is a thing. That means you are literally training people to have social skills who should already have social skills, right? Two, there are a number of officers, I'm sure, in various police departments that may not have the education necessary to perform their job correctly. And when I say perform their job correctly, I don't mean like just locking people up. I mean like writing a report. I have heard from different officers in some police departments that there are illiterate officers, basically officers who know how to get by. So that's very disturbing, right? And very not in the least I think that there should be a definite track in not just training, but perhaps college courses in police work, right? And it goes beyond I have a degree in criminal justice. We are looking at 21st century policing, and there needs to be a whole course and degree course, whether it be bachelor's, master's, or PhD around that, because the technology that's being used, I don't know if all the officers understand that, and I'm not sure if they understand the level of scrutiny they are under some officers, because some people just are bad actors and they just do what they're doing, and they think that it's 1982 out here. No, it's 2022, and you will get caught. So I think that those are some of the reforms that I would like to see, and I would like to see a lot of these officers present emotional intelligence. Right? Don't just get out the car and be Rambo. Okay, investigate the situation. Know how to talk to people. Know how to make a joke. Learn how to emotionally and energetically sense a situation, as opposed to come out guns blazing like you are John Wayne's great great grandson. It's not that time.
My wife and I this summer, between COVID surges, vacationed in Iceland. And one of the things we found out that in Iceland, you have to have a college degree in order to become a policeman. So that's, to your point there, seems to be working pretty well in Iceland. So I think you have something there, Mary.